To begin with, we are going to have a presentation on can the public sector and startups work together to build an AI-enabled government. We will hear a presentation from Arune Matelyte, manager of GovTech Lab, Lithuania. Arune leads a team in the public sector that helps governmental institutions work together with innovative startups and companies solving the most pressing social and public sector challenges. Arune has been working on setting up the GovTech Lab since its inception in 2019, and with the help of enthusiastic team at MITA, Agency for Science and Innovation, Technology and Innovation, has placed GovTech on the strategic national agenda for Lithuania. Arune, welcome. Good morning, Arune. It's so great to have you here. It's the second day of AI Boost Conference 2021. Did you have a chance to participate yesterday in the conference? And maybe you have any insights?
Yes, it was amazing to see the whole community coming together and talking about the details of how to make AI work for business and not the other way around. So definitely enjoyed it, and I think today will be another special day in the AI Boost conference.
Amazing. So the stage is yours, and we look forward to hearing your presentation on how startups are going to disrupt our government in Lithuania.
Thank you. Thank you, Arune. So it's a pleasure and an honor to kick off the second day and to kick off the stage and the track that's the closest to my heart, which is AI for government and society. We heard yesterday so many different cases about how AI is changing the business, how corporates are run differently, how small businesses can make better decisions based on AI, how even the wine industry is changing. And even in our day-to-day lives, we can see this change happening. The way we do shopping, the way we do banking, everything is changing because of startups and because of AI. But actually, one industry is sometimes forgotten in these conversations. But it's not forgotten in the startup world and in the VC world. I'm talking about the government and the public sector. There are increasingly more startups and investors that are thinking about how to disrupt the government, how to disrupt the stage and the industry that's usually perceived as very traditional and not very keen to be disrupted. But this change is happening, and we need to talk about it today. So I'm going to talk about three key things today. First is what? So what actually is AI-enabled governance? Secondly, why? Why do we need, as a public sector, to work with startups to actually build this AI-enabled government? And finally, how? How we can create this partnership that is both equal and productive, so we can build the AI-enabled government that works for everyone. So let's start with what? Of course, on the surface, AI-enabled government is what the title says it is. It's the government that can use artificial intelligence to actually have better policies, better services, and can work better as an organization. And that's what AI-enabled government is all about. First, it's about smarter policymaking and decision-making. Government has immense amount of data, from data about businesses to data about individuals, transport, even the weather. And AI can make sense of this data. It can detect trends and patterns that couldn't be seen by people themselves, and then suggest potential policy decisions. How should we, in the specific intersection, build a roundabout or maybe put a traffic light? What kind of employment or economic policy should we do to make sure that our economy is going up and not down? This is one of the things how AI can help in terms of policymaking. What it can also do is simulate potential impacts, see how policy decisions affect actually economy, affect people, and make sure that we can design the policy that works for everyone. What it can also do? By using natural language processing, we can make sure that the new policies are checked against the older policies, and we can make sure that they're not repeated, that the old policies are deleted, and so on. It can also detect some patterns, patterns that are unexpected. For instance, corruption or instances of tax fraud that maybe couldn't have been detected by a person's eye. So that's how AI can be used for smarter policymaking, making better decisions and making sure that they work. What we also have with the AI is the opportunity to make better public services and reimagine public services that actually work for everyone. So what does that mean? It means that public services can work in a similar way that we order food online or do a Revolut €5 for lunch for a colleague. We can make sure that public services are both proactive and personalized for every individual. Imagine if you have a child born and then you don't need to ask government for child benefits. They are immediately sent to you. If you're retiring and you can get your pension immediately without any extra action. Or if you're seeking employment and the government could choose policies that in the past worked for similar type of job seekers as you are and made sure that it worked. This is how AI can help change public services and make sure that they work for all of us. Imagine if there could be a specific one point in the government where you could contact with any of your questions. Imagine of getting rid of calling one department, being forwarded to another one, and being stuck in this vicious circle. AI could help us create one single point where government could be contacted. And then based on natural language processing, your question could be understood and sent to the people that actually can answer it. It can help match the supply of doctors and demand by patients in the hospitals. It can help us decide where should ambulances should wait for the calls to make sure that those that call can get the service as quickly as possible. So this is how AI is changing our public services. And finally, the AI can change how the government as organization works. So making sure that we can intelligently automate public sector processes, similarly as we can do in businesses. So we can automate and use AI for a lot of back office functions such as finance, accounting, even HR, and we can make sure that people can spend time on actually value add activities. Imagine if you can use AI for procurement, making sure that you buy things that are the best quality and the cheapest at the same time, making sure you get rid of all those inefficiencies. This is what AI-enabled government is about. It's about better policies and decisions, it's about better processes, and it's about better services. But why do you need startups for that? But there's already businesses that can create solutions. There's already academia that can suggest their own options. There's NGOs and society that you can include. Why startups as well? Well, there are a few reasons. First one, what could be called exploratory innovation. What does that mean? Well, let's look at the theory. If we want public sector organization to have innovation capacity and to be able to actually look for innovative solutions, there's two types of innovations that they have to balance at the same time. One is called incremental innovation, where step by step, organization can improve their processes and be better at what they do. And this is essential. But at the same time, organizations have to be able to undertake exploratory or radical innovation to make sure that they're not just going step by step, but they're taking a leaps toward 1,000 steps, or maybe even 1,000 steps to a different direction. And startups can help do that. They usually don't work on improving one process by a little bit. They usually come up with a completely different ways how a specific business can be done. And this is what they can help do with the public sector as well. The second one is skills and expertise. So startups are the experts in what they do, right? They're the ones that are coming up with the technological solutions. They know about the nits and grits of AI. They know about what technology is capable of at the moment, but they also know what is being developed and what will be available in the future. Before launching any product, AI startup has to analyze the market as much as possible. They know what's out there. But in the public sector, what we see is public sector at the moment is not able to attract a lot of AI talent, data analytics talent. We don't have huge teams in the public sector that can come up with these solutions. And this is where startups can come in. They can offer their skills and expertise that we cannot have inside to use that from the outside and to cooperate with that. And you know what comes from skills and expertise? The ideas. Because of the knowledge that they have, they can come up with the new ideas and solutions that then can be used within public sector. And the final one, which might sound a bit controversial, is why not? If we're already working with other businesses, if we're working with academia, other public sector organizations, why should we miss startups? There is a value in itself by having a diverse opinions in the room. And startups can fill that gap. And we actually seen that before, especially at the beginning of pandemic. When there was a need for quick out-of-the-box solutions, startups were able to come up with them and deliver them reliably. So why not continuing this practice, and why not including them in the usual processes as well? And now let's go to how. It might seem from what I said up to now is that, okay, startups need to work with public sector. We agree on that. It's easy to do. Well, unfortunately, it's not that easy. Startups are agile and nimble organizations that have completely different pace of working from the public sector. Public sector has a lot of bureaucratic structures that have very different ways of working. You know, they have a bureaucracy that was built to ensure that they can, without interruption, service millions of people. We wouldn't want anyone to be left without their benefits for a month, without ability to buy food. So they are different, but how we can make sure that we work together and on what? So to begin with, government has to start with a vision and including startups there. There's no point for government to creating a strategy of AI in a country and then including startups afterwards. The value add of startups is coming up with ideas that are out of the box and not just implementing someone 100 or 1,000 rows of technical specifications. So it's important that to work together with startups, public sector includes them from the very beginning when coming up with vision of the strategy and of AI strategy in their country. And it's not just for the government, but for the startups, it's essential to be included from the beginning to make sure that the strategy actually works for them. Because that's one of the reasons why we're creating these strategies, to make sure that our economy is going forward. And in Lithuania, we actually did just that. Around 2 years ago, it was decided there's a need to come up with a guidelines, with strategy and vision. What's the future of AI in Lithuania? And to do that, no one actually sat behind closed doors and tried to write all the text themselves. What was done, it was a community of public sector officials, of academics, of startups and companies was brought together, and a mix of these people worked on the strategy, and it was called AI Think Tank. And during these workshops and discussions and meetings, just because of these interactions, the strategy itself was born and was written by the community and for the community. And actually, a few days ago, I looked at the list of people that participated in this process, and almost half of them were startups. And I think this is the way to do it, to actually include them from the very, very beginning. And if you were with us yesterday, you heard the welcome speech from our Prime Minister. And she mentioned one of the key future documents that we're working on and strategies is called Lithuania 2050, about the vision, how our country should look like in 2050. And she mentioned that we want to include AI experts from both academia but also startup community to be in that group of people that are coming up with a vision, that can make sure that the vision is set to both reflect the reality of technological innovation, but also the ambition that in a drive that usually startups definitely have. The second how is co-creating solutions. So it's essential that the impact and the cooperation between startups and government is not limited to just talking with each other, coming up with visions and strategies. The value add of startups is because they can come up with amazing solutions, and public sector should be able to use that. But of course, usual public sector processes do not necessarily reflect how startups work. Their procurement was built for big corporations and companies that are more focused on just delivering technical specifications, but not necessarily coming with out of the box solutions. So if you want to work with startups, you have to come up with a way that works for both public sector and startups. And this is exactly what we did here in Lithuania. We try to take the best practices from corporate innovation, from public sector innovation in other countries, and come up with a process that can facilitate this creation and co-creation of innovative, both AI and other technologies-driven solutions together with startups. And this process is called GovTech Challenge Series. It starts with our selection of very interesting challenges from the public sector that would interest startups, and then putting them out to the market, to everyone, as transparent, as mass communicated as possible, to find the teams and ideas that want to create solutions for that. And what we do next is when we have public sector organization and startup, is we put them in the same room or in a physical room or in a Zoom room or in Teams room and make sure that they co-create the solutions. Make them work actually together and work on the equal partnership perspective and not just one as a supplier and another as a contractor. And then we want to make sure, of course, if the solutions work, that they're tested and then they're implemented. So this is how we try to facilitate this process in Lithuania. And I'm going to tell about a few cases that came out of this process. And what we actually also did over the last year was on this process overlay procurement. So we found this procurement method that was in the regulation for 10 years already, but no one thought to use it for digital solutions. But over last year, we had over 40 challenges that were actually done this way. And I'm going to tell a few examples. Of course, the solutions that we work with are not only based on artificial intelligence, but some of them are, and I'll mention a few of them. So the first one is Communications Regulatory Authority worked with Oxy Labs to create a solution that can make internet safer place for children. The solution that could automatically detect illegal content that's aimed at children abuse material and actually help the regulator to remove this data, making the internet a safer space for children. Additionally, we had startup Kodami working together with journalistics inspectorate, ethics inspectorate, and they worked together to create a hate speech detection tool and monitoring tool that could be based on AI and specialized for Lithuanian language to make sure that our online community is nicer to each other and that we avoid hate speech cases. Additionally, at the moment, our police department is working together with Telesoftas and Vytautas Magnus University to build a better police force management with a predictive police model. So making sure that police forces are assigned throughout the day, throughout the weeks where they actually needed, where they're placed where they potentially needed, with the predictive cases where they might be needed. And we have also challenges that are at the moment finishing their processes and will be building the solutions in the next few months and year. So for instance, Vilnius City Municipality was looking for a solution how using artificial intelligence and satellite data make Vilnius greener. What that means is having a solution which can help monitor the green spaces in Vilnius, see how it's changing, and then make decisions based on that. But solutions in Lithuania are come not just from challenges from public sector, they come from the community as well. We have amazing startups that work with the government and build AI solutions, such as Occipit with the AI solution to improve diagnostics with chest X-rays. Similarly, Ligence, they have AI automated echocardiography. And during COVID, we had non-Lithuanian startup actually working with Lithuanian government with AI, which created Vilta chatbot, the usual suspect in the AI-enabled government field chatbots. And it was a huge help to fight the COVID and the disinformation, because people were able to go to the website, the official Corona website, and ask questions chatbot. This way, kind of minimizing the impact for call centers that were already quite stretched. And the final how is funding. So a lot of ideas can die down because there's no one to implement them and to finish them off. And it's essential not to just talk, but to actually have resources to continue building these solutions. And although it doesn't sound like very innovative or very sexy idea, it's actually essential to make sure that the cooperation between startup world and between public sector is on equal grounds, and it's an equal partnership. In Lithuania specifically, we had 3 directions. So this year, we've been working with over 40 challenges to actually fund these challenges and for public sector organizations to pilot GovTech solutions. Over the next years, two different directions will be focused on. So the first one, there's planned huge investment for user-centered public services to make sure that both new public services that are digitized are focused on citizens and on their needs, and not just on digitalizing the same paper-based process that was done before. And additionally, to make sure that those processes that were already digital, make sure that they do work for citizens. And the other bit is AI startups and funding for them specifically. AI startups do have specific needs, and you'll hear today in the other stage in the AI for startups track a lot about the details of AI startups, how to track funding, marketing, and so on. And you'll understand that AI startups do have a specific needs, and our government, of course, wants to address that. So there's additional funding that will go to specifically AI startups, and to make sure that they can sustain themselves, they can build solutions. And I hope that these 2 activities, and we hope that both the user-centered public services and building out AI startups will find each other, and the best AI-based solutions for user-centered public services will be built. So today I asked, can public sector and startups work together to build an AI-enabled government? And I hope that from what I talked about, you agree that yes, we can build it. We can build a public sector working together with startups, a public sector that uses AI solutions effectively, that it uses to work to make sure that government works for citizens. But for that, of course, we need everyone's help and everyone's desire to actually make this a reality. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Arune, for your presentation. It has been really interesting to listen to. And by looking at you, being such a powerful woman representing Lithuanian government and innovation, seems like we are really on the right track. But as well, I have a question for you. Do you think we have enough Lithuanian AI startups to power boost the ecosystem and actually make these things happen quicker?
Well, the AI startup ecosystem is definitely growing and growing fast. But of course, it's definitely not enough to fill our needs. And a lot of startups, AI startups in Lithuania, are actually working with organizations abroad. So of course, not all of them will focus on Lithuania. So I think it's essential for us to be open to the world, and to be open to startups from other countries. And being a country as a sandbox, it's one of the ways also to attract startups from abroad to come here to test their solutions there. And I think it's it's a very good way, an extra way to our selling point as a country to be open to those startups and to actually create them financial and opportunities to be part of our government and to build the government together.
Great. In Lithuania, previously, we have seen examples of successfully working sandboxes like the one created for fintech nearly 6 years ago. So do you see the same success story happening in the AI sector as well?
Yeah, I think the AI sector, of course, especially in the government, it's very broad, and it's probably would be a bit more difficult to set up one sandbox. There's so many different data pools and data lakes where new solutions could be built. But I think there's definitely a way to create these safer spaces where AI startups could test if their solutions are ethical, if they comply with the regulation and so on. And maybe even if not now, we need to start building it at the moment to make sure that any future legislation from the EU does not impact us negatively, but we already have an infrastructure to invite everyone here and say, okay, test it with us if it's complying with the new regulation, and we can give you a green light or a red light if it doesn't work. So I think that's a way forward for us.
But as we know, startups are always ready to sell their ideas. They always have some innovative solutions on the table that can offer for the businesses, for the governments. But let's speak on this other angle. Are the public companies, public sector companies, are open for these innovations, for the disruption happening in a short period of time? Do we have enough infrastructure, enough resources, enough people with right mindsets in the right positions that would drive these changes?
We have a few. we have a starting point, so we definitely have a few organizations that are ready to do that. But of course, overall, as a public sector, and in Lithuanian public sector, actually, we have I think like 2,000 or 3,000 organizations. So it's difficult to generalize, but there is definitely that lack of skills and understanding, not skills of like programming, but skills in terms of understanding the potential of innovations, the fundamentals of technology. And then which makes people a bit less confident about themselves, and then about talking with startups and understanding if what they're pitching is, correct, if it's something that they need to. So, we're on the right track, and there are organizations that are able to do, but there's definitely need to be more work done to, like in terms of the skills, and then building up the confidence from the public sector's side to make sure that they can make use of it and they're not afraid of it, but they can embrace it.
Yeah. And which countries do you see as a perfect example for you to look at and get inspired, where the model is already working?
Well, I think you might expect me to say Estonia, but it's not necessarily the case, actually. Although Estonia has definitely worked so much on the digital government bit, not a lot of it was, working with startups together. When we built the GovTech lab, actually, one of our kind of inspirations was Scotland, because they are, of course, they're part of the UK, but in itself, they are relatively small, more similar to Lithuania. They have this kind of open approach and building these processes. So Scotland is definitely the one where they're open to change and open to new ideas, and have been our supporter for the last 2 years. So we kind of continue the relationship, and they continue inspiring us in this space.
Amazing. So I wish all the best for you, for those pilot innovations to happen. So thank you very much, Arune, for your presentation today.
Thank you. Thanks.